Howdy, folks. Howdy, folks. Well, today, or shall I say this evening rather, I'm going to do something a little different than I have done before. Uh, I'm going to show you how to animate. Um, this particular video may get a bit long. I will probably not try to do everything in this video tonight. However, I will carry on with it until this scene is finished. But what you tend to see on, particularly in YouTube videos, or probably not in tutorials so much, if you buy a tutorial from someone, obviously they're going to show you all the steps, I would suspect. So I'm going to attempt to do the same thing here, except this is going to be on YouTube, so it'll be free and you won't have to pay for it. Ooh. Which, of course, a lot of folks are doing that on YouTube, and God bless them. So what I'm going to do today, or tonight rather, is I'm going to animate something. And I'm going to do it step by step so that you can see what I'm doing and you can see how I'm doing it. I'm taking a character. This is, you see a model sheet here of a character. And I'm going to use this character to animate. And I'm going to use some of the poses that I see on this model sheet to animate this character. My reason for doing this particular thing is that as I look over YouTube and I look at talks about animation, one of the things that I kind of notice, and particularly with Disney animators, is that, a lot of times by the time they show you something on the screen, there's already a lot of work that's already done. And you don't really know, how did they get to this place? How did they get to that place? How did they get started? All that. Every animator works very differently. Some work very clean and tight and finished, kind of like I do. Some work a lot rougher, doing thumbnails. There's lots of ways to do animation. What I will show you today or this evening it's just my way of working. And even I've tried different things myself. So I wanted to start out and say that so that you know from where I'm coming. Also, for those of you who don't know me, I did get my training at Disney. I was a Disney artist. I worked on Fox and the Hound, Black Cauldron, Mickey's Christmas Carol. I did stuff for the Epcot Center, for Walt Disney World. I've done animation on a lot of shows. I've been a director, was director at Warner Brothers for 6 years. I worked on Animaniacs as a director, Tasmania. I've got a lot of credits. I work with Richard Williams. So anyway, I worked in the animation business for 45 years. I'm retired now. I teach still. And by the way, if you're interested in taking any classes, I do have online classes that I do one-on-one with people. I like doing online classes one-on-one, primarily because people learn at different rates. And when you're in a class setting with a lot of other students, sometimes your understanding of something can fall through the cracks. I prefer the one-on-one because that way each person can learn at their own rate. Some people will learn something a lot faster than others. So I like it better because a person may understand something already and we can move on to something a little more advanced with that student because they already have an understanding. Whereas other students might need more of a handheld, like to walk them through something a little bit more carefully to make sure they understand. People sometimes are afraid to ask questions, or they're afraid that their questions might be stupid or silly. And I always try to encourage people to don't feel like that your question is a bad question. That's what we're here for as teachers, hopefully to help you as best we can. That's my feeling. I had a lot of great teachers, a lot of great influences. The great people at Disney, I can't say enough good things about them. A lot of the folks that I worked under at one time or another, Randy Cartwright, Glenn Keane, Don Bluth, Chuck Harvey. There's such a long list of people that I could give credit to. Andreas Deja, I met when he first came in the studio, tremendous talent. So many people who are all fantastic artists that I can't say enough great things about them. I wouldn't be where I am today had it not been for a lot of these really super talented people who are still contributing greatly to our business and to our industry. So anyway, having said all of that, let's get started. So anyway, you see the model here on the screen, and I'm going to move this off to the side here. So I'll be able to see it. You won't, but I'll be able to see it. So, all right. So the first thing that I'm going to do here is I'm going to make a decision about um, what poses I want to do. Now, when you start to animate a scene, the first thing you're going to do, usually when you animate a scene, you have a storyboard, and on the storyboard will, pretty much say, okay, this is what the character is doing. If the character is talking, what it'll say, what the character is saying, all of the important stuff. And so the storyboard then sort of in a sense, well, not in a sense, but the storyboard actually gives you really the poses that you're going to pretty much know that represent the scene. So you're going to know just from looking at the storyboard what your poses are going to be. So you'll know, where you're starting. And yeah. Now, I don't have a storyboard here, but what I am going to do is I'm going to pick a few poses to represent a scene, and I'm going to draw those poses first. So I think what I'm going to do is this scene is going to primarily be a a neck up, a shoulder up scene. So in other words, I'm not going to draw this character's whole body. I'm just going to draw him from the neck up using the model sheet that's given to me. Now I'm working, if you're wondering what program I'm working in a program called Rough Animator, which is a very inexpensive program for you to buy. The desktop version, which I'm using on my Wacom, is $10. So for $10, you can purchase this software. You don't have to rent it like you would Photoshop, where you'd have to pay every month for it. It's better to get, I think it's much better to get yourself any type of software. It doesn't have to be Rough Animator, but any kind of software that you can just pay for outright, because personally I think it's ridiculous to have to pay a subscription fee. But that's up to you. If you don't mind doing it, God bless you. Whatever works for you. I just don't like doing it. So things cost enough, Lord knows. So anyways, so that's what I'm using for this. And Rough Animator is a pretty user-friendly software. If I understand how to use it, anybody can. I'm not very tech savvy. I'm not some super techie. Some of you younger folks, I'm sure, have a lot more knowledge about software than I do, and I certainly, am no authority on that. So, I like animating, and I like a software that I can use that's easy for me to use. All right, so this is going to be my first pose. And I think what I'm going to do here on this pose is, now that I've got it drawn out, I'm going to move him over a little bit here. Okay, just a little bit over, more toward the left side of the screen. All right, so what I'm going to do here, when you start out animating, usually what you want to do is on your timeline, it's good to give your pose several frames to just make sure that the character is going to be on the screen for a period of time, because you're going to I play the poses throughout the time that I'm working on something, not necessarily to get timing so much as just to see the poses. It would be the same as drawing the drawings and flipping them, just to get a sense of what's going to happen. So like right here in the timeline up on the top here, right here, it'll say 1 frame. So I usually make this at least 4 frames, but in this case, I'm just going to make this a 6 frame hold. And that's really just so that we can see the pose. So now I come up here to add drawing, and it'll say add after. In Rough Animator, when you ask for it to add after, it will add a blank frame like it just did here. And that blank frame will now also be 6 frames. I'm going to turn on the onion skin here at the bottom, which you can't see it on the screen here, but there's an onion skin on the bottom left corner. When I hit that, what that does is that creates sort of a light table effect where you're able to look through levels of paper. And of course, your onion skin, for those of you who know how to use it, is usually set for transparencies that'll usually be 3, 4, 5 frames or more, so that you can see that many frames through the paper. It would be the same as having, if you were drawing on paper, you might have 4 or 5 sheets of paper and you'd have a light box where you're looking through. You could see 4 or 5 drawings. And that's what the onion skin effect does. I'm sure a lot of you already know this, but I'm taking the time to explain it for folks who don't. All right, so now I'm going to do a pose to get me to where I want to end up. So I'm thinking this guy is looking. I think what I'm sort of wanting to change the expression of this guy. So on the model sheet here, I see a pose where I think I'd like him to end. And instead, he's got kind of a scowl here in the beginning. But I'm thinking, like, well, what if we can get him to a different exposure? Now, I would say on the model sheet here, there's a pose where he's smiling. Well, you know what? That's not bad. We could have him smile. We could go from a mean expression to a happy expression. That's all right. I think what I would like to do here, though, if I'm going to do that, is I think it would be nice to then, the way it's in the model sheet here, his look is focused somewhere else, but I would focus his look where he's turned his head to, which makes sense because, if he's going to change his expression, there would have to be a reason for why he's turning to look in a direction. And so I give him a happy look here. Maybe even furrow his brow a little bit in that direction so that it's a very different expression. Okay. All right. Right. Okay. So now you can see the 2 poses here. Let's see. So his hair is kind of flopped over that way. Let's see. So let's keep that consistent. Right. Back of the neck there. Let's see. Yeah, that's good. I don't guess he's too big there. Let's see. Maybe I can drop him down just a tad, size-wise. Okay. So I'm selecting the head and moving it down just a bit to fit within the frame. There we go. So he's going to turn this way, so we want to have him that way. Let's see. You're always, when you're making a new pose, obviously you're kind of looking back and forth between the 2 poses that you've got to see if there's a consistency in the way you're drawing that character from one pose to the next, trying to keep the look of the character consistent. Making sure that everything looks like it's working in the same vein. If a character turns to the side or something, obviously the character is going to look a little different, right? And even if you say hit the play button here, you're going back and forth between those two poses, you can see that, how things are changing as you go from pose to pose. Now, you don't worry about timing or anything at this point because that's not what's important right now. What's important right now is just getting the poses that you want on the screen. Now we want to get to we want to get between these poses. Okay, so we want to start to connect the dots. So what happens? So let's think first of all, what would get him from here to here? He's upset, angry about something. He's going to see something over here at the end that will then make him happy. All right. So we can start out, and this is an animator, you start to plan what you want to do. So now my first thought here is perhaps he's looking somewhere else prior to him looking at camera. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to duplicate this first pose. There's a little box here that will say duplicate after. So now what it just did was it just made a second pose that's just like the first one, except the difference is it's just the copy of the first pose. Now what I'm going to do is go back on the timeline here and highlight the first pose, and you can see in the top there I highlighted the first pose, which is exactly the same as the second. I'm going to take my eraser and erase the eyes with the pupils, and I'm going to start the look. Say he's looking down at something here. So his eyes would be going, say, and if I were to flip this, see his eyes go up and then over, up and then over. He looks up and then over. Now probably if he were to look up, I think I'd make this longer. I'm just going to make this say like 10 frames. I'm going to hold it 10 frames. So you can see up here I've highlighted this area. That's now 10 frames. The first one's 8 or 6 rather. The second was 10 frames and the third one is another 6 frames. So now I'm going to go back and play this again. So you see he looks up and then he's over. Looks up and then he's over. Now once again, I'm not timing here. All I'm really doing is I'm just holding the drawings on the screen long enough so that I can see the action. So in that first frame, I think what I'll do here is I'm going to have his eyebrow be up. Okay. So in other words, I'm going to have his eyebrow raised here. So it's up like that. Okay. I'm going to erase the little wrinkle that was above his forehead there, and I'm going to put a little crease at the top here for that, and then on the other eye I'm going to bring the eyebrow down. Now the reason why I want to do that is I want to intensify the look down so that that is more intense looking down in that first frame. So he's going to go from looking down there to up. You can see now how that changes his eye look. And then come over to here. Now if I roll those drawings, see I got a little bit of something starting to happen, a shift of thinking. And this is just the drawings now. I'm not done any, we haven't, timed anything yet necessarily. Because animation, when you're doing animation, you're learning the process of how to get from one pose to the next. There's a lot of things that have to happen to go from one thing to the next. Okay. So he's up here. Now then, what I can do from here is, what I think I'm going to do here is I'm going to take this drawing where he's looking at camera. I'm going to go in here and duplicate this drawing. Okay. And now what I'm going to do is have him, I'm going to erase the eyes again, and have him now start to look in the other direction. So he's going to look over here. That'll be what'll get him starting in that direction. So he's going to look over there. But now, now I think what I'll do here is, let's see. I think I'm going to make the mouth, move the mouth up slightly. Maybe twist it just a little bit. And I think what I'll do here on the eyebrow, on this right eye here, our right, is I'm going to make this eyebrow go up. So it's like he's scrutinizing something that's now in that direction as a reason for him to look in that direction. And then I can put a little bit of a crease over that eye. Okay. Now let's roll these drawings and see how they look. Yeah, see, so he's... So obviously there's a thinking process. Something's going on in the front. He looks over, and then he reacts going over there. All right, so what we've got now is we've got 4 drawings. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now these all represent what we would call extremes or key drawings. The key drawings are look at them like as the flag post drawings, or they're the most important drawings in the scene. They're going to move you from one pose to the next, and each of them is important, but they represent landmark positions in the scene, to get you through that scene. We do these first. The keys are always going to be drawn first. Now, sometimes, as I mentioned in the storyboard, you'll see a series of poses that a character has to go through in the storyboard, and a lot of times those could be seen as key positions. Usually an animator doesn't always use those, and sometimes there is a step between the storyboard and the animation called layout or character layout, where they'll have an artist who'll take the background scenic, if there is one, which usually there always is, and they'll draw a character based on the storyboard and show what the character is going to do in that scene. When character layout happens, a lot of times that's the first step of seeing the character kind of moving before it's animated. The layout artist, the character layout artist, isn't necessarily an animator. A lot of times the character layout artist is, just someone who draws the character pretty well. And they may not necessarily be an animator, but they have enough knowledge about movement and the character to sort of know what the pose needs to be. And a lot of times the character layout people also may contribute to the model sheets. They usually have people who do model sheets, like the ones that I showed, the one I showed you that I'm using here. But that stage is, once again, getting you closer to the animation. The animator, of course, is the ultimate actor. That's the person that brings the character to life. So the animator has to really kind of figure out what's the character actually going to do. Just so you know, once again, in the process of animation, the way it's done in a number of ways. But of course, a director will usually cast an animator for a scene or a sequence. The director, when he first works with an animator, he will explain what he wants in the scene, and then the animator would then go back and articulate that. Sometimes the animator will do thumbnail little sketches to show how he thinks the scene should play out. And depending on the relationship between the animator and the director, sometimes if the director has good confidence in the animator, he may not need to see a lot of planning. But it really just depends on the relationship between the director and the animator and how the director likes to be worked with. But either way, the animator still has to figure out what is he going to do, how is he going to do it. Sometimes you invent things as you work, but generally speaking, you sort of already know going in the type of character you have, how that character kind of thinks and acts. And you as the animator has to get yourself into the character. Not too much unlike the way an actor would himself do the same thing. You have to think through, how does the character think? What's he thinking? Why is he doing what he's doing? And you need to be able to sequentially put that down in a series of drawings. And so that's what you're doing at first. When you're making those key positions, you're starting to think your way through what the character is going to do from moment to moment to moment. All right, so we've got our guy here. He's looking that way. He looks up, a little suspicious. He looks over to the side, and then he decides to go there. All right, so now we got to get him from here to over here. So what we're going to do now is we're going to add a drawing in between, which we will call an anticipation drawing that will get him from here to here. All right, so what we're going to do here is we'll go over to where it says add drawing. We will, we're going to hit add after here, which is going to put a blank frame between these two. And this blank frame is looking like it's going to be 10 frames. I'm going to bring that blank frame down to 4. And the reason why I'm going to, well, I'll bring it down to 6. The reason why I'm going to bring it down to 4 or 6 is because obviously I want that middle drawing to be a little faster than the others. So now what I'm going to do is draw this anticipation drawing. Now what I'm going to do here is, since I already have this last drawing where he's looking that way, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this to make the anticipation drawing. So now I know I want to have him kind of crouch down and come up, and I'll show you what I mean. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show this guy in this way, but I'm going to I'm going to compress his face a little bit, and I'll show you what I mean. So I'm closing his eyes here. I'll explain this as I'm doing it. This. So I got the nose there. I think what I'll do is have his mouth be still down. Draw his chin out here. I want to trace that. I'm going to use the reason why I'm working from tracing over this drawing is because this is where I want to end up anyway. So I may as well, since I've gone to the trouble of making this drawing work and making it look the way I want it to look, I may as well use it as a basis for the position in between, which will make that position in between more accurate. And then also too, I also want to take into account that this hair, as he goes down, is going to go up, and I'll show you what I mean here. So I'm just going to very roughly sketch in something, and I'll have to explain it as I'm doing it now. So I've traced over that. Now what I'm going to do is grab this with the select tool, and I'm going to move it over here, and I'm going to tilt it a little bit. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to roll these drawings, all right? So let me show you what I mean here. So see, da-dum, boom, boom, da-da-dum, boom, boom. Now what do you notice there? You notice that he goes down and up. So that's the anticipation. He's going down and up. Now what I may also do here on the down position is I'm going to, since his head gets a little bigger as he ends up, I'm going to drop the size of this head down a little bit, which is maybe makes it a little closer to the first drawing. One of the things you have to worry, I have to always make adjustments, is that when I'm sizing drawings up and down, the pixelation on these lines sometimes changes, and you may have to go back in and enhance your line. You may have to, not always, but okay. Now you can also see why I did this little thing with the hair, because as he goes down, see, his hair is going to have to flip up, isn't it? Because he's moving fast, and it's going to cause his hair to kind of jump up a little bit on his head, right? See if we like that. Now let's say we roll that. So you can see how the hair might go. Now, actually, it's not even going up high enough. Let's do more with it. Let's say, because I kind of want to see that action. So let's say his hair jumps up this much. And you can just sometimes just do a little sketchy thing in here and just look to see how that works. You roll that. Yeah, you see how the hair's up a little bit as he goes over. Well, that's kind of good. Okay, so that's working. So now we'll clean that up a little bit. Try to make sure this is working good. And on Rough Animator, by the way, it has different brushes. You can't see the, well, I don't know if you can. Yeah, maybe you can see this. Yeah, I think you should be able to see this. Yeah, I think you probably can't. Yeah, on the side here, I think you should see up here in this corner. This shows the types of brushes. I'm using a rough brush here, so like if I click on this, you can see that the rough brush is highlighted. So that's the one I'm using, but there's two other types of brushes. There's an airbrush effect for shadows, and then there's a solid brush here for a solid line. Okay, so I'm using the rougher one. All right, so now I'm going to come back here. See how long we are. Well, we're at 30 minutes. I think I'll do this pose here, and then I think maybe we'll do maybe one more poses maybe. All right, so now he goes down. Now, here's what you want to do. When a character kind of scrunches down like this, a lot of times what I like to do is make the shoulders go up. Because then the shoulders go up, that sort of accentuates the character's body or head going down. Then that way, and then, and then here also too, here's another thing. If he moves over like that, that's also going to affect the collar, isn't it? So that's going to maybe kind of flow over a little bit too. Because see, you want things to have a kind of lively movement, You don't want things to be stiff. You want things to feel lively. Okay, so we roll that. Yeah, see? See, so the shoulders going up like that sort of give a little bit of, I don't know what the word is, it gives a little bit of, what does it give? It gives a little bit of something. Let me do this too. Let me make this window, let's see, 75%. Let's see, no, it's not. We'll make it 50%. No, that's too small. Well, 100% is, oh, that's 100%. Oh, okay. All right, well, let's do this and let me move. I think I can do it here. Yeah. I'm going to move this up in the corner because I know that my image is down here on the side. So it might be hard for you to see the whole full image. All right. So you see what I mean? Now you can see the whole thing. So that then gives, you see how his shoulders going up sort of helps to accentuate the body coming forward, right? All right, let me stop that. I'm going to bring this back to fit the window just for my own purposes. All right, so he goes down and then he comes back up. And so what we're going to do here is he's going to come back up into here. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to now duplicate this after. So when he comes up, I'm going to change his mouth. I want to have his mouth be more open. And in fact, I think I may want to have his chin kind of drop open. I'll show you what I'm going to do here. So like here, I think I'll have his mouth like this, like he's surprised at what he sees. So I'll have his mouth open. And I'm looking on the model sheet to see if there's anything I can use here. There kind of is. So If you're wondering, we are going to walk all the way through this scene. It's going to take more than one of these tutorials. So follow me. This will be part one. Okay. So yeah, he's okay. So the chin will be down here, a little bit lower. See, because his mouth is open. So that's going to make his chin drop down, right? Then on the eyes, I'd say, you know what? Let's maybe accent the eyes by having them on this drawing, having them be bigger, having them be more elongated as he, and then have his eyes smaller initially, so that they kind of pop into place. So we'll because you're kind of always looking for accents in animation. And see here, you could even grab his eyebrows and just move them up. So like, I can grab his eyebrows here and move them up a little bit. So you didn't even have to draw them. You've already drawn them. Then on the hair, yeah, see on the hair, we can erase. We know the hair is going to end up there, but we can do, let's see. Yeah, we can, have the hair kind of following through, huh? Like that, so that it follows through to get into position. Let's roll these drawings. And we might be able to lay the hair up there a little bit more. Let's see, maybe we can erase this. Let's see. Okay. Maybe it's. Things that are following through, like hair, clothing, that kind of stuff. Sometimes you have to almost do that separately to get it to work right. Roll the drawings. It's a lot of times the stuff you can do at the end. Here, let me bring this to 100%, and so you can see it. Yeah, you roll the drawings, you see. So you can see how we're getting from pose to pose here. Just the key drawings by themselves are already sort of telling us something about what the scene is going to do, how it's going to work. And this is without in-betweens. We don't have any in-betweens in the scene as of yet. The in-betweens, of course, will smooth everything out, but we have to time it first. Now, right now, the timing isn't too bad. It almost kind of looks good, but you'll find that as I go back over this, and we'll do that step by step, that you'll see that the timing is something we have to work that out. We have to think our way through that. Right now, we're really just looking at drawings. All right, well, I think we've got a long video here, so I don't want to go too long. I don't want you to fall asleep or anything. So I'm going to stop here, and we'll pick it up on the next iteration. So anyway, this will be, I will call this part one. And then part two, I don't know exactly when I'll be doing part two. Maybe tomorrow. It just depends on how I feel. We'll see how it goes. Of course, you can look forward to my fun sketching times, which I do every day of the week, usually not on the weekends. Once again, for those of you who are interested in classes, I do classes in animation, character design, and storyboarding. They are online classes, and they are low-cost classes where I will work with you on the price. The prices are pretty good. They range from $200 to $325. The sessions are anywhere from 10-week sessions to 15-week sessions, and the sessions are anywhere from 2 hours to 3 hours per session. So that's so you just give you an idea. I usually let you pay for the classes in a convenient way. If you're able to pay them all up front, great, and that's great. But if you're having a situation where you don't have that much money, right, but you still want to take the classes, you're welcome to break those payments up in a fashion that will be, convenient for you. Okay, well, have a beautiful evening. It's Saturday evening here, And, I'll see you guys on the next one, the next iteration. And have a beautiful evening. Enjoy your evening. And remember, Jesus is Lord.